This Storyfire model, called Learn Well and Tell, includes 5 storytellings and 5 questions. The story is reviewed several times so that everyone can learn the story well enough to share with others. You will be viewing a complete session without any editing. Well, it's good to meet with all of you tonight. And as we were talking a moment ago, we're going to be talking about a journey here in just a minute. But let's start with prayer, first of all. Lord Jesus, we do come before you. We just ask that your Holy Spirit would speak to us, that we could hear new things from your word. Thank you so much for giving us your word. In your name, Jesus. Amen. So I'm going to tell you a story, and I'll stand up while I do that. But before I do, it's important that you know something that happened before. Just before the story took place, God used many great miracles to deliver about 3 million Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And after they left, the Egyptian army chased them, and they were pushed up against the Red Sea. And God said to Moses, "Take that rod that's in your hand," and the water parted, and 3 million people escaped on dry land. And then after that, for many months, God provided water and food every day for these folks. And this is where my Bible story begins. Now, the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of sin, just as the Lord commanded. And then they came to a place called Rephidim, and they camped there. But there was no water there. And the people came to Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And they quarreled with him. And Moses said, "Why are you quarreling with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted even more, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? Was it to kill us and our children and our animals with thirst?" And Moses said, I have to show you this. Moses said, "God, what am I to do with these people? They're about ready to stone me." So God said, "Go out before the people, pass in front of the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the rod that you smote the Nile with, and go. And I will stand before you on the rock at Horeb, and you're to strike the rock, and water will come out so that the people can drink." So Moses did so before the elders of Israel. And Moses named that place Massah and Meribah, because there the people quarreled, and they tested the Lord and said, "Is God with us or not?" And that's the end of the Bible story. Now, we're going to go through the story 5 times. I just did it once. The second time, I would like you to pair up, and one of you tell the first part of the story, whatever you remember. This is not a test. And then the other person tell the second half of the story. So let's just do that now. If you could pair up, and go ahead and do it right now.
So after Moses freezes,
who's going to do the first one?
Sure.
Okay.
Background of the story is
it's hot and it's dry, and the Israelites are thirsty, and they're quarreling with Moses, and basically demanding
water.
Is God with us?
Throughout the whole time, Moses was responding to
Moses
them,
prayed
and
Moses was not God spoke to him and said, pass in front of the Israelites or take the
So yeah, I guess it's good. You can finish, go ahead. So then Moses prays to God, and he says, and God, what should I do?
Moses did that.
So God tells him that take the rod with which you
And then Moses named
stroke the sea, and
because
you strike this rock, so that rock is going to come water. So Moses went, and he did so, and the water came out. That's it, right? Yeah.
It's all right.
Everybody finished.
Is everyone? Everyone right?
Okay, you told the whole story.
I know only half of it.
Okay.
Just
So where's the city?
Okay, now we're going to retell the story together, and it's what we call a lead through. And I'll say part of the story, and then I'm going to pause, and I'll ask you to fill in what I don't say. Okay? Now, the children of Israel journeyed by
stages.
from the wilderness of sin, according to the
Lord's command.
Very good. And they camped at a place called Rephidim, but there was no
Water to drink.
Very good. And the people
Quarreled.
quarreled, right, with Moses. They said, "Give us water."
To drink.
And Moses said, "Why do you
Quarrel with me,
Why do you test?"
the Lord.
But the people grumbled even more because of their thirst. And they said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? Was it to
Kill us
and our children
and our livestock.
with thirst?" Very good. And Moses said, "That's your tough luck."
No.
Now, what did he say?
You didn't say that.
He didn't say that. No, he didn't.
Why do you test the Lord?
He said, well, first of all, he went to the Lord and he said, "What am I to do
With
with
these
people? They're about ready to
stone me.
And God said, "Go pass before
The elders.
The people of Israel.
and take with you
Some of the elders.
of Israel, and in your hand the rod with which you struck the Nile, and go. And I will stand before you on the
Rock.
of Horeb, and you shall,
Strike the rock.
and water will
Flood.
for the people to drink." And so Moses
Struck
did
the
so
rock.
before the
Elders.
Before Israel, yeah.
very good. And Moses called that place Massa and Meribah because the people quarreled there, and they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord
With
With
us or
not?" Very good. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now is you're going to work. And we're going to do a drama.
A drama?
Yes, a drama.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, this is fun. You like it. You like it.
The actor. He's the actor.
Yes, okay. Who likes the drama? Right. And I'll narrate, and I'm just going to ask you to act out the parts. This is going to help. Well, it's going to be fun. So, first of all, who's going to be Moses? Unanimous vote. And we need some elders of Israel.
Me.
Okay, and we need the rest of the 3 million Israelites. Okay, so perhaps why don't we start over there, and we'll make the rock of Horeb over here by the table. And again, you don't have to say anything. I'll just, I'll narrate.
Didn't mean to get in the way.
Okay. Ready on the set? Okay.
We are ready.
Okay. And the children of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin, as the Lord commanded. And then they camped at a place called Rephidim. But there was no water there to drink. And the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." But Moses said, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people thirsted for something to drink. And they grumbled. And they said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? Was it to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" And Moses cried out to the Lord. And he said, "What am I to do with these people? They're about ready to stone me." And God spoke to Moses, and he said, "Pass before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and the rod that you struck the Nile with, and go. And I will go before you and stand on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will flow out for the people to drink. And Moses did so. Before the elders of Israel. And Moses called that place Massah and Meribah, because the people quarreled there, and they tested the Lord, saying, "Is God with us or not?" Very good. Good job, guys. Good job. Now, did you feel like a little bit more? I mean, no, we had fun, but did you feel a little bit more into what was actually going on then? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you to take it a step further. I'm going to tell you the story one more time, but I'd like each of you to close your eyes, and I'll say it a little more slowly, and imagine being there. I heard someone over here saying, hot and dusty. I mean, you can imagine all those things, but just put yourself there into that story, okay? Now, the children of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin, just as the Lord commanded. And they came and camped at Rephidim, but there was no water there to drink. And the people quarreled with Moses, saying, "Give us something to drink." Moses said, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people still thirsted, and they grumbled against Moses. And they said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? Was it to kill us and our children and our livestock?" And Moses went before the Lord, and he cried out, "What am I to do with these people? They're ready to stone me." And God spoke to Moses and said, "Go pass before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the rod with which you struck the Nile, and go. And I will stand before you on the rock at Horeb, and you are to strike the rock, and water will flow out for the people to drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And Moses called that place Massah and Meribah, because the people quarreled there, and they tested the Lord and said, "Is God with us or not?" Okay. And now we move from reviewing the story to discussing the story. I have some questions, and this is the time to, as the Lord shows you things, you get to talk now. Well, first of all, what did you like about the story?
I like that it was evidence that God is with us, that He provides what we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the Lord provided. And Moses inquired of him when he was in trouble too.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord gave them grace by giving them water, even though they were not trusting Him and quarreling.
Amen. Yeah. In the beginning of the story, we see where the children of Israel journeyed by stages, from here, and then they went to here, and then they went to here, from the wilderness of Sin, as the Lord commanded. What do we learn about the people just in that first part of the story? Just from that, what do we know about them? What do we learn?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that they trust the Lord if they follow His commands. I mean, that's what I get out of it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I was struck by how they were obedient, because it did say
Yeah.
that the Lord commanded and they did do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we know this from earlier, but they didn't have a lot of stuff if they were traveling a long ways. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually learned a lot just in that first sentence.
I think they had short memories. Well, it was fresh in their mind of the Red Sea and all that they remembered, they followed God and Moses through for a while, and then, but as soon as things got a little tough, they sort of forgot that.
Yeah. Okay. And just again, in that first section, what do we learn? What do you observe? What do you learn about God?
That he's in a relationship with them, like
Yeah. Yeah.
he's guiding them.
He's long suffering.
Yeah.
He's faithful.
He has a plan.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, so then they camp at this place called Rephidim. And there's no water there. What do we... Well, let me ask two parts here. What do we learn about the people, and what do we learn about God right there, just where they camp in that situation?
I think it goes back to they're readily able to forget all the good things that God has done for them, and they immediately begin to, like worry about what isn't there, without thinking about what is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think God's kind of testing them, because why would you pick a spot to camp that doesn't have water? I think that'd be a necessary element to have to where you camp at. So I think I think it's a built-in. I mean, a test that God has designed to see what the people would do.
Okay.
So it's their lack of faith.
Okay.
I was struck by how human they are, because when I get hot, I get crabby. So it sounded like they were crabby. They were hot and thirsty and crabby, and that's all that they could focus on at that point was what they didn't have.
They're probably tired from the long journey, and so I think they're just thinking physically of meeting their physical needs versus God has something more for them.
When they come and they ask for water, was that a real need?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when they come and the story tells that they quarreled with Moses. So I mean, what do you suppose that when they're quarreling with him, what does that look like?
Well, it's like being angry with a leader that can't really help you. He's in the same situation. He's human as well, and he's also suffering without water. So, he's got great faith, and, the Lord is leading him, but...
Yeah. And what do we learn about Moses there in that part where, people are quarreling with him, and then he responds? What do we learn about Moses there?
I think he had it right. Doesn't sound like he engaged with them in their bickering, but actually went straight to God. So maybe he was unclear as well as to where the water was going to come from. But at least he went the right direction.
Yeah. The story doesn't tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
Story doesn't tell us.
Well, and he thinks that they shouldn't be quarreling. So he sees that that's not the right attitude to have towards the Lord.
Sounds like they're blaming Moses for their predicament.
Yeah.
But forgetting that it was the Lord that brought them out. reminds me of the garden,
Ah, yes. Yeah.
the blaming.
So Moses goes to the Lord and asks what to do, and God gives him instructions. What do we learn about God there?
No, he answers.
It's interesting that he kind of tells Moses to go do something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with a few steps.
Uh-huh.
Walk past the people, take some elders with you, and then hit the rock. I mean, God could have just said, you know, on the other side of this ridge is a river,
Mm-hmm.
but actually had maybe testing Moses' faith to follow
Yeah.
the instructions.
I mean, there's a lot of things he could have done. A lot of options there. People had options too. So speaking of the people, in the story, is there somebody that you would like to be like, or that you wouldn't want to be like?
To not want to be like the grumbly, quarreling.
Oh, I would. Yeah, how many want to be part of the grumbly crew?
And I think we would all like to be like Moses in this story, who seeks the Lord out and then obeys him. And
Knows that God will provide.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's significance to taking some of the elders. Maybe there were some elders that were remaining faithful and trusting God, and others that were not. So they also might be good candidates to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, they might. That would be fun to talk about that. Well, one other question, and that is, after listening to the story, and you've told the story, and you've acted out the story, and you've imagined this story that God put in His Word for us, how does that affect you? What is there something that you might look at differently, or want to do differently, or feel differently, or?
I think it's a reminder to just take every struggle to the Lord, those physical struggles as well as the emotional struggles, and that He's going to listen and provide what He knows is good for you in a way that may not make sense to you, but He knows it's going to be what you need and how you need it.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's also a reminder to look back and to see what God's already done in our lives, and to remember those things to help us be faithful and obedient in the present when it's hard to remember those things,
Yes.
or when it's hard to obey.
Someone here said we have short memories sometimes. Is there anything else anybody saw there they'd like to share?
I think we all experience dry times, various areas in our lives where you don't quite know what the answer is going to be and where it's going. It's just a reminder to take those requests and concerns to God, who can do something about them.
Yeah.
Versus either turning in on yourself or making other people's lives miserable.
Is there anybody that you'd like to tell this story to?
My later daughter.
Yeah.
Are you quarreling? Let me tell you this story.
Exactly.
with me?
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you. That was.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed looking into it a little deeper and chew on it some. See what the Lord says to you about it. Thank you.